beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Hello. This is supposed to be summer. The world's gone mad, as they say. Or as Piers Morgan would say. Morning, Piers. I wish. I've come across something interesting. There's a website out there called Intrepid News. Right? No. Is it Intrepid News? Yeah, it is. Intrepid News. I love that word. It's a nice word, isn't it? Intrepid. Intrepidnews.com, right? So, and this is really quite interesting. And it's from an article by someone called Josie Holford. So thank you, Josie, if you're out there. And it's called Do No Harm, Navigating Gender Identity Theory in School by Josie Holford. Okay. What's sad about it is it's only got 10 shares. And I thought, no, this is, let's get it out there. Let's have a word, which is what I'm doing with you now. In her thoroughly researched and scrupulously fair-minded book, Time to Think, Hannah Barnes relates the history and calamitous downfall of the Tavistock, England's only child gender clinic. It's a sobering story of the harm done to hundreds of children. It's about distressed adolescents, desperate parents, overstressed professionals, and out-of-control activist organisations. Barnes shows us just who these children are and what conditions they presented, in addition to gender dysphoria. Some of the patients report being happy with their treatment, and Barnes tells their stories too. But for many of the children, treatment led to severe depression, sexual dysfunction, and stunted growth. And osteoporosis. Almost all of them presented with other and sometimes multiple social and emotional problems that were simply ignored. It's a great opening salvo there. We know that the harms of this are myriad. We know that. And the saddest thing of all is we've known it for a very long time. Very long time. And it seems to be that we're ignoring some evidence that already exists, that's been around for a while. Time to Think is essential reading for any educator who wants to understand the issue. So this is aimed at educators, okay? Many of the children who presented for care were autistic and struggling with a sense of being different and socially awkward. Many were children, some with homophobic parents, who, if left alone, would grow up to be gay or lesbian. I'm going to say would have here. This is important for educators because schools are making decisions about whether to teach the gender identity theory that underpins medical interventions for gender questioning minors. My advice is to get informed and reach out beyond your usual media information sources. Now there is some wisdom. There is some wisdom for teachers out there, for those of you who work in education, for those of you who are embroiled in this and are not sure about what you're embroiled in anymore. Because by this point, you shouldn't be sure. Because if you've got no doubts that you're right, you're going to be in trouble. If you're not really exploring the dangerous nature of these theories. Gender identity ideology being just one of them. Yeah. Some of the most accurate and best researched reporting on this subject is coming from outlets around the world that you probably would not usually read. You don't have to just read, you can listen. There's plenty of podcasts out there. There's plenty of YouTubers who are talking about this, including, obviously, Fat Boy here. As the condescending phrase goes, educate yourself. Don't outsource your capacity for independent and critical thinking to your go-to pundits and politicians. Essentially what they're saying here, stop reading the bloody Guardian or the Independent and open your eyes. My path, or listening to Wibblers on the left. My Path Through the Maze is the next title. For the last decade or so, ever since pronouns and cis started popping onto my radar around 2008, and since the time high school kids started declaring they were pansexual or non-binary, I've been watching what's been going on with children's and schools. When Tumblr caught on, I saw these labels and this language proliferate with kids. When same-sex marriage passed, I noticed that LGB and other civil rights organisations started to switch their focus. Over time, something about it did not sit well with me. It activated my progressive and gaydar alert system. The more I learned, the more alarmed I became that this was the cuckoos laying eggs in the LGB nest. I got a whiff of all kinds of aggressive intellectual trappings. Why was everything wrapped in baby pink and blue? What was causing the sudden rapid growth of gender-questioning youth? Why were so many organisations and politicians I had supported and trusted showing such a lack of knowledge and curiosity? Why were they showing such a lack of understanding about child development and endorsing views totally at odds with child psychology, progressive thinking, and legal and cultural traditions? Why were they so quick to turn their back on women's rights? Why were they, or so it seemed to me, set on undermining children's understanding of reality and disrupting parental confidence? Now there's a set of questions to grapple with, right? And I would suggest that if you're a teacher, you go grapple. I would suggest if you're convinced that all things trans are good, go grapple. I would suggest that if you don't understand why you wake up with a niggling feeling when you read about this stuff, thinking you might possibly be wrong, because you should be asking yourself, am I the bad guy? It's what we do. It's one of the warrior teacher things. You ask yourself every day, am I the bad guy? Stops us from becoming ideologically possessed. Very, very interesting number of questions there, and I do suggest that you engage with them if you can. Next title, First Do No Harm. The science is settled. Admiral Levine, Assistant Secretary for Health in the US Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS, confidently said, referring to gender medical intervention for gender questioning minors. The science is settled. Can you believe he said that? Sally Baxendale, consultant clinical neuropsychologist and a professor of clinical neuropsychology at University College London, is one of the experts who have carefully scrutinised the available data. She begs to differ. Since no high-quality evidence for the benefits of puberty blockers has been found in systematic reviews, it is unsurprising that even the doctors who work in this field have described themselves as building the plane while flying it. With mounting concerns for the possible harms associated with a medical pathway of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, including reduced bone density, disruptions to neurodevelopment, impaired sexual function and infertility, not to mention the growing number of detransitioners for whom this was never an appropriate treatment pathway, one might extend their aviation metaphor as an attempt to build a plane while flying it, while someone else throws out all the parachutes and sets an engine on fire. That's a great quotation there. If you want to clip it, I've paused at the beginning and paused at the end so you can do so, okay? Then you can share just that, get people interested. All educators know that science is never settled. And the best evidence we have to date is that gender-related medical interventions are detrimental to young people's physical and mental well-being. Anyone's physical and mental well-being. Dr. Erica Anderson, a clinical psychologist with 30 years of experience working with gender questioning clients and a former board member of World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, also disagrees. You'll recall WPATH recently got given a snub by the NHS. Do you recall in the video I did? Seeing the huge spike in the numbers of gender questioning youth, Anderson has concluded that many of them think being trans is the explanation for their ongoing distress, when that is not the case. Acknowledging that social contagion may be a factor. Dr. Anderson sums up the dilemma for healthcare professionals. The biggest question today is not whether gender-affirming care is appropriate for transgender youth. The question is, who is transgender and at what point should medicines be used? That's Dr. Erica Anderson there being quoted. I can answer that question for you. Nobody's transgender. Nobody. Absolutely nobody. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean a thing. Doesn't mean a thing. It's just about stereotypes. I would say the question is, who is mentally ill? And at what point should medicines be used? We know that we have a huge backlog of young people, specifically girls in most cases, but some boys, who think that they're something they're not. The triage should go like this. No, About 6 times. No, no, no. And then finally, right, here's some education. Learn what this stuff really does and what it's about. And then it should be, right, you need to see the doctor. And then it should be, yeah, you're going to have to deal with it. This is not something that you can do. You can't change your sex. We need to tell you the truth. Then they're referred for mental health care. I think getting anyone near any of this so-called gender medicine should probably be about number 25 on the on the triage list, if it exists on the triage list at all. At all. Here we go, it's bloody Levine again. In a July interview, Admiral Levine said, adolescence is hard and puberty is hard. What if you're going through the wrong puberty? This is a LARPing man in a dress in America lying about medicine. Who's in charge of medicine? Get your head around that. These absolute lunatics who are sitting there on thrones. What if inside you feel that you are female, but now you're going through the male puberty? You can't feel like you're inside, if you're female or female, or vice versa. You are your body. Levine knows this, mind. Levine knows it. That's what I think. To Levine, the damage done to people is collateral damage in my book. That's what I see. We need to think about this carefully. The article continues. As educators, does this comport at all with what we know both intellectually and experientially about child development? What would Piaget, Vygotsky or Erikson have to say? That's interesting because we've just done some Piaget with the warrior teachers. We're looking at Piaget and his schema. Fascinating. I think Piaget really provides a very important insight into this. Not just if you're a child either. Strange enough, because obviously his psychology can be transplanted to adults. If you look at developmental stages, he's given them developmental stages that are from 0 to 3 and so on. I think some people never go through the developmental stages that Piaget talks about. And that's half the problem. The US is becoming an outlier in paediatric gender-related medical interventions, while countries like Sweden, Finland and the UK have pulled back on their treatment of children and teens who experience alienation from their sex bodies. The United States seems to be determined to ignore the mounting evidence and forge ahead with these extreme pharmacological and surgical solutions for emotional distress. Kibono? The cure for most children with a diagnosis of gender dysphoria is going through puberty. I mean, there should be no diagnosis. None. Until they've been through puberty and, most importantly, got laid. Right? I think the other cure for gender dysphoria is sex. Tell me if I'm right, tell me if I'm wrong, put it in the dubris. Get laid. You know, buy yourself a new jumper, cut your hair. Get out of the basement. Right? In some cases. Or in other cases, try to improve your social circle if you can, which I know can be very hard for people with autism. Very hard. But various organisations are popping up now to help with this, which is great news, you know. For many, it's a developmental stage on the route to identity formation. I've got a problem with that. This idea of identity, what nonsense. Your identity isn't decided by you, it's decided by me. And others that you will meet through life, okay? You've got a personality which you can turn into a character. That's what you should be working on. That's what I think. So again, a great piece here, but my concern is the language is within the framework of this trans nonsense. We need to have language that is outside it and identifies the nonsense as something else, as something separate. And to do that, you cannot use their language. And this is, to me, their language. I don't mean any disrespect, but this is their language. Identity is immaterial. The large majority of children desist without intervention. You're damn right they do. With gender-affirming care, puberty itself is in the medical crosshairs. Why would they want to disrupt puberty, these people? Bring on the ever-child. It's helpful to distinguish between gender ideology and the rights of people who identify as trans. Trans rights are about the social accommodations that enable trans people to go about their lives with the same protections as everyone else. The fact that they're trans is immaterial. They've got the same protections. To achieve this means working on solutions in an area where trans rights conflict with the rights of other groups. They don't have to be intractable problems. However, the extreme claims of gender ideology make negotiated solutions and alternatives impossible, which is why we have to repeal the GRA and get it out of the Equality Act. It's that simple. People do not get to lie about who they are. End of story. I'm sorry. End of story. End of story. I know that's hard to hear for some people who are transsexuals, but the damage is too great. The damage is too great. It's just too great. What they say in this ideology, and the reasons that the negotiation is impossible, is because sex is on a continuum, and therefore concepts of male and female are subjective matters of self-chosen identity. A person's inner sense of gender identity should not be doubted or challenged. You are who you feel yourself to be. Children as young as 18 months can know their gender identity. I mean, this insanity. Trans women are women and trans men are men. No debate. Denying or challenging the truth of any of these sentences is akin to violence. This is the weird Kafkaesque trap that they've constructed for everybody. That's the dogma, as is said in the article. What it means is that a heterosexual man can call himself a lesbian, and a man self-identifying as a woman has the right to enter women's only spaces, competitions and sports, and demand to be housed in a woman's prison, even if he's a convicted sex offender. This is a stonking article, right? And I would urge you not just to go and read it, but to, after you've shared and liked this, please like, that's important, share it. Share and like this, usual stuff. You can buy me a coffee, do become a warrior teacher. There is a group, not a group, I say a group. There is a Twitter handle online called Head Teacher Chat. You can search for it. I'll try and put it in the doobries below, right? And I've had a look at them, and they provide information and guidance for head teachers, and it strikes me as they're good people, doing a very good job indeed for head teachers. And I would suggest that we get Head Teacher Chat to read this article, and the easiest way to do that is to tag them into this YouTube, not tag, is to share it and then tweet to them, watch this video, because Head Teacher Chat, you could make sure that the head teachers that you're working with, who obviously have great trust in you and who treat you with, the respect your work deserves, I think head teachers need to hear this, and they need to hear it very loudly. Or perhaps head teachers are already onto it. I do hope so. But either way, I would suggest go and have a look at Head Teacher Chat, and you can share this with them. There's much more to the article than I've actually read out. It's an extremely good article and very useful for not just educators, but anybody. So go have a look. Do some stuff. All right? And I'll see you later. Bye-bye. I've got to build things, and I hate that. See you later.